Good morning, everyone. As Bill said, I'm based out of Bellevue, and I'm part of the Microsoft Teams Platform Engineering Group, and I lead the platform adoption with our strategic enterprise customers, just like yours. And excited to be here this morning to talk to you about a couple of things related to platform and how it can help you drive digital transformation within your organizations. Before we jump in, a bit of a brief disclaimer. Through the content, we're going to be showing some stuff which we haven't released yet, as we are all under NDA, mutual NDA. So we're not sharing any timelines, but we're going to show you some next-gen stuff related to app administration and stuff. So just a quick call out, and we will get started with that.
And a recording of this presentation will be made available to everyone participating.
Thanks, Bill. So the agenda for today is we'll just do a quick recap of what Microsoft Teams is as a hub for teamwork, and then we're going to look at what are the different platform capabilities that we offer. What does platform mean? What kind of apps are available for you to use? And then we're going to spend a little bit of time on understanding what managing app in Teams mean. And this is where we're going to show the next-gen stuff is what's coming. And this is more for your awareness and how you can plan if you're going to do anything about apps in Teams. And I'll quickly, before discussing about scenarios and stuff, we'd like to show how is Microsoft using the Teams platform within our organization, like how are we using the capabilities to enable certain workflows and scenarios within Teams? And then we can discuss about the SLATE program, which is the kind of support that we provide to a selected few customers in helping them realize and enable their scenarios within their organization in Teams. Please feel free to, if you have any questions, please feel free to share it on the chat window, and myself and Bill will probably take breaks in to answer those questions. Now, no brainer. I'm assuming you're already using Teams today, and the core tenets of Teams have been is that how do we really make it as a hub for teamwork, which are 4 or 5 essential pieces for us. One is communication. So through chat and meetings, how does that all come together? Like, how do you connect with people at the right time using the device that you're on? And then the second piece was collaboration. So let me just go back. How do you interact with documents and services within Office 365 right in Teams itself, like a single pane of window? Then as we started hearing customers, one of the things that became very clear was, hey, great, Teams allows me to connect to content and services and experiences within Office 365, but what about experiences outside our Office 365? We all have our business systems, we all have our system of records and workflows. That is where the need for platform comes in. And I'll just quickly talk about in next couple of slides what platform means, but the ability for you to bring your own data, to bring your own workflows and your own experiences is where platform comes in and fills in that gap. So you're just not now limited to accessing data and experiences within Office 365, but outside Office 365 as well. And while you do that, the most important thing has been is how do you do that all with confidence in terms of what are the security features we are offering, stuff like e-discovery, audit trails and stuff. That makes the product more comfortable to use with, and so you're at peace in terms of understanding, okay, this is how things land and this is how things get managed. Now, we talked about platform in the last slide. Now, platform is a set of APIs and SDKs that we offer to our partners, especially build with partners like ISVs and SIs, and as well as to our customers who are looking to build apps for their own internal consumption. And a platform, as I said, it's like a set of APIs and SDK, is a combination of capabilities. So there are a bunch of capabilities that we offer. You can decide what makes sense in your context. So bots is the first most prominent capability that a lot of our partners and customers are building around. No-brainer. Bots are these conversational experiences that you can enable. They have both a personal context and a team context. That means a bot can have a personal conversation with you, and it can also be part of a team and can interact with a group of people. And then the tabs, these are like rich experiences that you can bring inside your channels. So today they are not just limited to channels. Initially when we rolled out tabs, they were all around, like you could pin a tab inside a channel just the way you would pin a document inside a channel. But now you can also pin, enable tabs at a personal context level. So that allows you to like have your own context around OneNote. Just look at the OneNotes that you're using. But if you had pinned a OneNote as a tab in a channel, then everybody has access to the OneNote that's pinned. Messaging extensions is my favorite. And the scenario is, imagine a scenario where you need to share a URL with your colleagues in a channel chat or a personal chat or a one-to-one chat or a group chat. You would just paste the URL, someone would click on the URL. Now they are switching the windows, they are in a browser, checking out the page, and the context switching is happening. The set of folks are not at the same place to have a conversation around. That is where the messaging extension comes in and allows you to search for content right inside your Compose box and share it as a rich card right inside the Compose box. So when you share it, it's not getting shared just as a link, which is clickable, but also it's getting shared as a rich card with all the metadata. Imagine if I was to share with Bill an issue we are having in our project management. And instead of me sharing a URL with no metadata around it, like he doesn't know what the title of the issue is and what's the severity, he still has to go to the browser to do that. But what if he could see the card right in the chat? He doesn't need to even click it. He knows what's happening there, and he and I can have a conversation right at that moment. So that's messaging extension. We do have activity feed. So this is this one place where I am the center of universe, and everything around me, be it at mentions, people replying to the threads, people replying to the threads I'm following or channels I'm following. In that case, apps have the ability to surface notifications and activity feed. So let's say someone assigned me a task on Trello. Now Trello can send a notification update saying, hey, you just got assigned to a task, and those would appear into my activity feed. Connectors, these are really powerful, lightweight stuff that you could do today. If you're in a channel and if your tenant admin and team owner has enabled apps, then you could go into a particular channel and subscribe for updates. So these are just inbound messages. There is no outbound attached to it in the connector, but of course in the actionable messages you can take actions as well. So imagine if you were to subscribe, you just want to track all Sev0 issues on Jira. You can bring that into the channel using connectors. So every time there is
Sorry, we're just responding to a request to hide or reduce the avatar inside the presentation. Can you lock getting that smaller?
No, it's already okay. I got it.
Great, thank you.
Awesome. So thanks, Bill. So connectors is just subscribing to updates. They use the concept of incoming webhooks. Most of the systems today on cloud and on-prem, they do allow posting to incoming webhooks. So you should be able to share updates from your systems right into the channel. So anytime there is a Sev0 issue created, you can route them into Teams channel. Anytime someone creates a task or updates a task, like using Azure DevOps or Atlassian Jira, you could send those into Teams channel. Anytime there is a server down, and if you're using tools like PagerDuty and stuff, you can route those instances those messages right into the right channel so that people who are following that channel or who are having conversations in that channel or are active in that channel would get notified then and there. The last piece, as I said earlier, we talked about tabs. Tabs could be pinned in a channel, but then if you were to have your personal experience like tabs, then that is where personal apps comes in. It allows you to, in this case, what you're seeing is a planner personal app. It allows me to see all my tasks, consolidated view. So all the tasks that are there in different planner that are pinned in different channels and tabs, I can see that in one place now. So that allows me to, instead of me going to every channel and figuring out what my task in a planner is, now I can go to a personal app and look at for planner and look at it all in one place. So with that, if you take all those capabilities and if you combine it with Microsoft Graph underneath, like Microsoft Graph allows you to connect to all the services, consume data and services from Office 365, Windows, and as well as your EMS. So that's like your API gateway. And if you then combine with intelligent services from Microsoft AI, like conversational AI, cognitive services, if you're doing anything with speech recognition or sentiment analysis and stuff, that is where you could leverage Microsoft AI. And then you could definitely bring in your own line of business systems data. So this could be on cloud or on-prem. And when you build the apps, they can consume this set of services underlying and kind of create an immersive experience in Teams itself. So the things that our customers are building using the set of capabilities and services within Microsoft and internally within their own IT environment are stuff like, hey, how do I get notified? How do I take actions into it? How do I drive collaboration around a particular entity? It could be a document, it could be a system of record. How do we do that? That is the three kind of buckets that customers are focusing on in terms of enabling these scenarios into Teams. This particular feature, the company app store, is already in GA. So if you navigate into store today, and if your company has published any company apps, then you should be able to find these apps listed in the store. What would happen is if you see there is Conteso right in the category layer, that's your company app store. Anything that your company has built and published only for internal consumption that within your own organization, it's your private app catalog. So you could see I have in Conteso, I have this bunch of apps that my team has built and published, and I can just install it and start using them. That's available today. You can build apps, you can publish it for your own company. So the entire user base in your company should be able to consume it. But the next set of things that we are working on and we are hoping to land this in next few months is something called permission policies. So what if you want to limit an app only to certain set of users, be it a third-party app or be it a custom app that you have built? That is what we call as app policies. That's coming soon. There are a bunch of things that would happen in it, like who gets to sideload it, who gets to enable and disable it. And there's another interesting thing, which is who gets to see it on the left rail. So we have this new capability coming soon, which is pre-pinning apps on the left rail. So just the way you have your chat, Teams, meetings, and calls on the left rail as icons, if you have built an app and if you have pre-pinned an app for certain users in your organization, they would be able to see it right on the left rail. So here, if you see there's a Conteso icon, that's an app. When I click on it, it's just a, let's say in this case, it's a Kanban board as a personal app for me. So these experiences is something that we are working and we are hoping to land in the next couple of months. And that is what is exciting in terms of how it enables the digital transformation within your organization.
Great. Zaki, I've got a couple questions.
Sure.
And I was wondering, just because some people are annoyed the avatar is still showing up, if you could switch to whiteboard while I share whiteboard and I'm going to try one more time to get rid of the avatar. So I've pressed it about a dozen times. But, and as you're doing that, I'm going to ask you the two questions. Steve asks, can a published company app be secured to a defined audience? If you could, I think you mentioned that in passing, but if you could expand on that. And then the other question is, can you expand a little bit more on timing? So those are the two questions.
The first one was, sorry?
The first question is, can a published company app be secured to a defined audience?
Yes, that is coming soon. We are right now, the platform team is working on it, and that has been one of our top priorities. And I cannot share the timeline yet, but I can definitely say in next couple of months, we should be starting to roll out. If you're part of the TAP program, you should see that much sooner, and you should be able to give it, try it and give us feedback then much earlier.
Great. And then the second question is, what is the timing on these? Can you talk at all about timing?
Timing in terms of all these managing apps and teams features to roll out?
Yes. Yeah, just if we could just expand a little bit on timing, that would be helpful.
So this is what we are targeting, and please take it with a pinch of salt, because once we ship a feature in our we have this whole canary to production release cycle, right? So once we ship a canary build, there's usually a 4 to 6 there's a 4 to 6 week time that it takes something to hit production. We are hoping to land app policies in next 2 to 3 months, like end to end, which means pre-pinning is coming out much earlier. I'm very hopeful by sometime end of next month, that is March, we should be in a position, like you should be in a position to try out pre-pinning in R4 rings. If you're already part of R3, like if you have tenants in R3, you should be able to try out pre-pinning today.
Oh, great. Okay.
Yeah. That is we have already some customers trying it and giving us feedback, like the ones who have been building apps and rolling out and piloting it with certain users. That's happening today. Permissions, basically saying, hey, pre-pinning is basically a discoverability feature, right? How do I make my apps discoverable? But and you can make pre-pin. The thing with app policies is you can pre-pin it for certain users, or you can pre-pin it for entire organization. The second set of features that we are hearing a lot, especially with the customers who are starting to build and who do not have test tenants, or who have built using a test tenant and now need to test it in production, is decoupling the side loading. So today we have a feature in our administration view where you could allow users to side load apps. Now, what side loading app means is it's today binary. It is one for all or none for all. So when you flip the switch, allow side loading, what it also does as an effect is it allows all third-party apps in that organization. Because if you're it was by design. The decision, a year back when that feature was rolled out was, if you're fine with your developers in your organization allowing side loading, like building custom apps and side loading into a particular team, then we made an assumption that, hey, it's fine even to get third-party apps used. Now, a lot of the customers have asked us to decouple those two controls, basically decouple side loading, like only set of users in the tenant should be allowed to do side loading, and that the enablement and disablement of third-party apps is they want it to be separate. They didn't want to club side loading and third-party apps in one switch. So that's happening. That's coming. Tentative timeline, again, I would say late March or early April. You should be able to try it out in inner rings. R4 date is still fluid. I mean, once we start hearing feedback, we should be able to, work. If it lands really well, then I think we should be in R4 much sooner.
Great. That's all the questions.
Awesome.
Thank you.
So let me switch back to my presenter view, and now that's about managing apps, and that was all under NDA. But what types of apps can you use today? As I mentioned, there is ready-to-use apps. apps built by Microsoft, built by our trusted partners that are available in your tenant. If your tenant admin has enabled those apps, you should see it in your store catalog. Examples could be ServiceNow, Planner, Jira, Confluence, and Poly. So both within Microsoft, outside Microsoft, we have partners who have built and launched apps. There is a stringent app review process that happens every time a partner, both Microsoft and our external partners, when they publish apps on our store, they go through a rigor of testing, like authentication, identity management. We try to understand the terms of use and so forth. And after reviewing all the scenarios and test cases and looking at their terms of use and how their privacy policies are set up, we enable those apps in Teams, like we get them published into our Teams app store. That's the route you can take today. Like if you're already using any of these services, you should be able to start using them. If not, like if you have something very specific, internal business systems that you want to connect with and interact with in Teams, then that's the custom built route you can take. And most of the presentation, like I would say last 30-40% of the presentation is focused on that. Like, what are the scenarios? How can you envision it? What is the support you will get from us as Microsoft as part of the SLATE program? It's a very strategic initiative offered to selected customers. How could you take benefit of that to enable something within your own organization? Before I jump into the whole custom apps things, today we have over 250 plus Teams apps, just to call out. So if you see anything over here, Chronos, ServiceNow, GitHub, if you're using Azure DevOps, you should be able to use Azure Boards today. Azure Pipelines and Azure repositories is coming soon. And then if you're doing something with surveys, so SurveyMonkey is available, Poly is available, project management side of things, Smartsheet, Rike, Asana. So these are what we have today in store. Please feel free to check out the catalog. And if there's anything that you feel is missing, please feel free to reach us out, and we should be able to work with the right partners to see how we can make them available in our catalog. So at this point, I want to. Sorry, this is a little
quick
weird.
question while you're setting that up. Any date on Confluence Server, if that's going to be added?
Confluence Server is on our roadmap. On the date, I can get back. We have, I think, in terms of priorities, we are looking at Jira Server to start with. We have GitHub Enterprise coming in. Confluence Server, I can come back to you. Like I can get back to you on the date.
Okay, great. And then another question is, can security on custom apps for Teams be coupled with AD, or is that via the license?
Usually, most of our customers, when they are most of our partners, when they are building apps for App Store, they allow dual authentication schemes, which is either you can sign in when you're configuring the app for Teams, you can configure using the service provider credentials, like Atlassian credentials and so forth. In case if you have configured AAD with Atlassian, or if you have configured AAD with ServiceNow, you should be able to leverage the same in Teams as well. So they do allow you to sign in with your AAD credentials. Almost all partners that we work strategically with, they adapt this design pattern, wherein identity can be through bringing in your own set of credentials. There's a form that you fill in, username, password, and then you can configure things. Or you could just say sign in with your Office 365 credentials, and then you can get started.
Great.
So we're going to spend. I'm going to show two scenarios, and when we share this deck, you have a lot more scenarios in the appendix section where you can see how Microsoft is enabling or leveraging Teams platform to enable these scenarios in Teams. So we're going to talk about two. One is how we are managing workflows. We as a product group, like building Teams, we leverage platform ourselves. So what we have done is we have built a set of apps where we can monitor user feedback around what features are getting requested. So today when you when you go to user voice and you post feedback and you're ranking features over there, for us, like you're voting and letting us know your feedback on it. Those things come directly into Teams channels for us, right? We have different channels for different feature areas. We have tab over here set up so I can see which feature is trending, which is getting traction, and this helps us to understand and prioritize. So rather than me going to in a browser, we are all in one place and we are able to have conversation with the right people around the right end, like the topic itself. We get notified. So what I've done is in my context, I've notify, like I have subscribed to certain topics, like based on my feature area, and those topics, like whenever, like it's a digest. So like a weekly basis, it sends me the data saying here are the top trending items that you might want to look at. And then what I can do now is with my fellow, PMs and peers, I can share this data and say, what are we doing about it? And figure out the next best action. That is what is one of the, it's more of a product management in Teams. Like how do you do product management in Teams? How do you do user feedback management in Teams? The next scenario is very interesting. Here in Puget Sound, in Microsoft main campus, we have a shuttle service. So we have two kind of rides available. One is a fixed route ride. I can go from point A to point B. There are intervals of time when these shuttles depart and arrive. So I can look up for the schedule for this fixed routes based on my location and where I want to go. And then there is a more of a concierge service wherein if they are not part, if your destination is not part of a fixed route, then you can do something like a shuttle pool. So you can set the building that you want to go to and what building you want to be picked up from, and the shuttle gets booked and you can track your ride. The couple of things that happens in it is, and if you're on a desktop, you could see the tab experience. You could look at all your trips in the past that you have made. You could do reservation of the trip. So in this case, I could say, hey, I do also need wheelchair access, accessibility options. I could provide all that. Now, what you're seeing here is a card layout called adaptive cards. This is I would like to spend 2 or 3 minutes on it because it's super powerful. I mean, once our customers start realizing how powerful this is and how it reduces the chit chat with the bot itself, is very powerful. So adaptive cards is an evolution from connectors and actionable messages. A bit of a history, if you're not aware what connectors and actionable messages was, Outlook introduced this concept of connectors. That is, as developers, you could decide what data you want to share as a card in an email or on a team channel. So connectors, today we have that as a capability. The next step we got as a feedback was, great, I'm getting these updates, but I want to take an action on it. I want to take an inline action on it. I want to assign a person to the task. I want to set the due date. And the next evolution of connectors was, iteration was something we called actionable messages. So same stuff, it builds on connectors. Additional capability it allowed was you could take actions on it, like lightweight actions. But then this concept became so powerful within different ecosystems in Microsoft that our partners and customers were asking, great, we're able to share the metadata, we're able to share, we're able to take actions on it. Is it possible for me to render the card the way I want it, the look and feel, based on my brand look and feel, based on my service, identity? Can I change the look and feel? And that's when, a common schema was required. And the most obvious question around it was, we designed it for Outlook and Teams. Can I surface it in Skype for Business? Can I surface it in Cortana? Can I surface it in Windows Toast notifications? So last year we announced adaptive cards. That's our third iteration and the most sought after right now. Like most of our customers are just building adaptive cards. Is you design as you want, you decide the look and feel, you can take actions on it, And the beauty of it is if you design the schema, you can surface it in different services within Microsoft and Office 365 ecosystems, Windows, Skype for Business, and as well as Outlook and other places.
Right. I was just going to say, yeah, expand on that. So Outlook, Teams, Skype for Business,
Windows Toast notifications, and Cortana.
And Cortana. Okay.
Yeah. So you could build these cards as a library, and within your services, you can push it into different channels where you want it to surface.
And the card experience is the same.
The card experience, the layout is what you have designed,
yeah.
But the look and feel will alter a bit to tune as per the look and feel of the product in which it's getting rendered.
Right.
So the same card, the structure, the layout, everything custom that you define stays as it is. Just the color schemes and stuff might get override based on what you're seeing in Cortana, based on what you're seeing in Teams. If users have selected dark mode in Teams, it's going to take the dark mode. If they have accessibility options selected, then it's going to render as per the accessibility options.
Okay.
So you don't have to now worry about, do I need to take care of accessibility options? Do I need to take care of light theme versus dark theme? All that could be rendered by surfacing it at the right channel. And you could also, so this is another, just an example of the same adaptive card, but a different layout, is you could now pin images and we are working with Bing Maps to see how we can get live maps into it, but you should be able to track where your location, where the vehicle is that's coming to pick you up and drop you off, and you could track updates on it. So that's pretty much, those are the two scenarios that I have shown here in context of how Microsoft is leveraging Teams platform. There are like bunch of more scenarios in the appendix section. Once we share the deck, you should have access to it. Like we're doing something around our cafe bot. So we have all the campus buildings in our main campus. They have cafes in it, they have cafeterias in it, lunch places in it. So we have recently launched a cafe bot which allows users to, check out the menu, place the order. Instead of going and waiting in lines at the counters, they could do it much ahead of advance. They can set schedules, like I know what I want to eat on Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday. I could do all that so that I'm not really losing time in just standing in lines and stuff. So that's there. The second thing that the third app I can talk about is we have like approvals app in Teams today. So if someone raises an invoice, if someone raises an expense report, if someone raises a purchase order, as managers, we are supposed to take actions on it. Now, I get notified in Teams and I can take actions on them. Stuff that we are working is how do people report time and absence, and how does people collect feedback from fellow colleagues. There is an interesting bot that has been deployed which allows people to connect based on their interest and skills. So if they are part of a same team, let's say if you're part of a 500-member team or a 1,000-member team, and you're all based in same location, then the bot randomly, you can decide the frequency, and the bot will then introduce you to certain people who you have never interacted with. Like it looks at your graph and figures out your, tier 1 connections, tier 2 connections, and then it tries to put you in the tier 2 and see, hey, do you know this people and that people based on the topics and skills that you're interested in. Now, those are the scenarios that we are enabling at Microsoft, and there's a bunch more. We're talking about single IT environment, concierge services in Teams itself. So you could think about, when you're thinking about how do you do this within your own organization, I would put that into 4 pillars. How are you empowering your employees? How are you engaging with your customers? How are you optimizing your services and operations and processes? And how are you transforming products? Like how fast and how much in confidence are you shipping products? So those are 4 major areas where you can think about how you can leverage Teams. And the more important question is, how can you do this? Now, the program that I and my team run in collaboration with Bill and his team is we work with you closely. So if you can work with your CPMs and CSMs, they can nominate you, we can evaluate your scenarios, we can work with you, we can bring in the right resources. Most of the time, what we have understood with our customers is, how do you envision is the more important part that our customers need support for. Like, how do you really design it for teams Then development part, I think the customers look more from our end as to supporting in terms of ramping up the developers, ramping up with providing them with the best practices and helping them with technical queries and support as and as on they are through the development journey. And then the last piece, then that a lot of our custom business units is how do they work with their own IT and our side of things in terms of enabling that experience into teams, either at org-wide level, if you're doing like a very broad scenario, or within your team level. So we work with you in terms of figuring out the change management and in terms of figuring out the deployment pieces, and then help you understand the impact or the usage that the app is having within Teams itself. That is where the SLATE program commitment comes into place. We bring in all these resources. If you have a strong business sponsorship, a strong need, we can bring in these resources to make this happen. If I was to quantify it, you're looking at for a 3-month engagement. If you were to engage, partners both within Microsoft and outside Microsoft, you would have end up spending about $500,000 on this. But instead, we bring in that support. You have to, like, there are gives and gets on both sides. We are happy to discuss once you have a scenario in mind and a strong sponsorship for it. But that's how we go about it. Now, what we usually do as next steps is, if you are interested in ready-to-use apps, we can work with you to identify what are those apps, how's the transformation going to look for your team, like how do you do a pilot in that case. If it's a custom app, we do something called, we evaluate your scenarios, we work with your account team and you to discuss the scenario a bit more in detail, and then we do something called Envisioning Workshop. Very powerful. I have like, so I'll quickly jump onto the Envisioning Workshop. So this is where we, sit down and do a 2-day immersive workshop where we narrow down the scenario, we flesh out the scenario from a perspective of what it is going to look like in design. We understand how you're using it today, how are you executing it today in your context, and then how would it look like in Teams. And then we do design and development workshop, like there are 2 sessions that happen architecturally. What is it going to look like from a technical standpoint of view, from a user experience point of view, what is it going to look like, from a change management perspective, what is it going to look like. That is what the Envisioning Workshop is all about. So it's a 2-day. If your teams are distributed, then we do have an option to spread it across 3 to 4 days and do it remotely as well. So that is all I have to share today about Teams platform and the SLATE program and how you can leverage this. Happy to take up any questions if there are any.
Yeah. So, question from Steve. I sense a clash between using SharePoint Online as a framework and Microsoft Teams as a framework to create applications. What is your guidance when we can potentially build a solution in both frameworks?
Steve, pretty much this is something that we are working and we are launching soon. If you have built, and I'm very optimistic, if you would have asked me the question next week, like if this session would have said you could do it today, if you are building solutions using SharePoint framework 1.7 onwards, we do have the capability to bring that into Teams as it is. So the single sign-on identity experiences can be leveraged. You could bring those experiences as tabs into Teams because SPFX doesn't allow you to build bots and stuff, but you could bring those experiences as channel tabs and personal tabs.
Using the website.
Yeah, so whatever you have built, not using website tab, there is a capability that we are shipping called SPFX tabs.
Okay. When's that?
So that is why I just need to go back and look where we are in terms. I know it's in our inner rings. Our SI partners are testing today and they're building upon it. I can get back to you on the date on that piece, but we should be able to leverage all the SPFX apps and the web parts that you have built on SharePoint and bring them into Teams. Not only that, if you have built Power Apps, if you have built experiences using Power Apps, you could bring that into Teams. So you could leverage your existing investments and bring them into Teams as it is. A bit of tweak might require to optimize the experience for different devices, but if you have already taken care on SharePoint and Power Apps for that, then that should not be a bit of a challenge in Teams. If you have already set up jobs on Microsoft Flow, then you can today, last week we shipped a feature wherein you can send adaptive cards into Teams using Flow itself. So you could do that. If you have existing jobs in Flow, you can send them into Teams. If you have existing Azure Logic apps, like you set up some jobs running on Azure and you want to route notifications from those Azure Logic apps into Teams, you can do that through Flow again. So if you have built Outlook connectors, you can bring them into Teams. So not necessary that you have to start from scratch. You could take existing investments and bring them into Teams as well.
Okay, great. The second question is SLATE to support overall Teams adoption or specifically to deploying apps within Teams?
It's more around the apps in Teams experiences. So if you're thinking about taking something, I would say it's a two-part thing. First, yes, the SLATE program is more around the apps in Teams concept. How do you envision an app? How do you envision an experience? That is where the support comes in. But the result, the net result is it does drive the product adoption as well, because once you allow users to come in and execute and act upon their data and workflows, you're actually building stickiness, and that allows you to keep driving your product adoption as well.
Great. And next question is, can flow approvals be routed and approved within Teams?
Yes, sir, you can.
Great. Are there sample apps for that available?
It is. So we have Flow as a first-party app available in Teams. If your admin has enabled Flow in there, you should check out the Flow personal app experience. It has My Approvals tab. Any approvals that comes in, it will either the bot can pop it up for you or it will get listed in the approvals tab as well. So you could go there and in Teams, you could take actions on those approvals.
Great. I'm going to give people one last chance to ask any questions. So those are all the questions that have answered. People have extended their gratitude, so thank you all. So on the count of three, going once, going twice, third time, any questions before we wrap up? Seeing none? Oh. SLATE be add-on apps. Okay, so Rob, you might want to rephrase that a little bit. He probably was trying to get in. I mean, first generation. SLATE, Rob, you're going to have to rephrase that a little bit better for me. The questions so far are SLATE be for add-on apps? Question? I mean, first generation. Okay, I'm going to give him a little more time here. He's going to rephrase it. Do you understand what he's saying?
No, I'm just trying to understand what that means. Is it first party or I don't know what that is. It like the Office add-on apps that you have built in case like Outlook
add-ins? I'm
add-ins?
furiously typing away here. Okay, here we come back with the question. For using apps like ServiceNow integration or Confluence. Oh, maybe he means is the SLATE program going to help us bring in a third-party app or a first-party app? Instead, this is all sort of we're going to create new things, right? We're not doing these integrations with third parties or first parties necessarily.
Yeah, so I would just put it in. Yeah, I would just say that yes, the SLATE program is more around the custom app stuff, but there is no reason why if you have any particular requirement like around ServiceNow, Confluence, and stuff, we can bring in the right people into the discussion and they can help you enable that within your organization.
So your suggestion would be for Rob to go to his customer program manager and propose an integration, and it could be first party, it could be with Flow or something.
Yeah.
It could be with
Workday,
Confluence.
Yeah,
or something
Workday,
like
Concur.
Yeah, ServiceNow. And I will say a couple things. One is that we're going to prioritize, our engagements because we have limited resources, but we are very interested in applications that can be used broadly within the organization. So we're not going to customers who have not deployed Teams and doing a bunch of work on an app with them. If you've broadly deployed Teams, but you've got a suggestion that could increase the use of Teams within your organization, and we think, oh, this is promising, this could be used in other organizations as well, that's a very likely scenario for us. We're also very interested in first line
Yep.
Now, first-line workers, that's our term for employees that work on shifts, and these can be doctors, nurses, first responders, in addition to what we traditionally think of as shift workers, which could be retail, manufacturing, manufacturing a plant facility, customer service personnel. So that first line worker scenario is also one we're very interested in. So those could be higher priority. And yes, in terms of the call to action from this presentation, I'll share the recording and the PowerPoint. And if you're interested, work with your customer program manager, which is the Microsoft Teams engineer who's assigned to work with your company. And if you don't have one of those, feel free to email the following alias, and I'll put it in here, mail proposals or questions to worker@microsoft.com. And we will respond. If you don't know who your customer program manager is, perhaps I can help. But also in terms of the ideas, if you don't have a customer program manager, feel free to email that alias with your questions, worker@microsoft.com, regarding the SLATE program.
Or even if they don't know who the CPM is, so
that's
they try
right.
to find out. Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
Exactly. All right. So thank you all very much. I'm going to wrap up now, and I really appreciate Zaki providing